Good morning, CHD. It is Thursday, March the 13th, 2025. We are live here at Children's Health Defence on CHD TV with Financial Rebellion. Now, many of you would have got the text alert for the Dave Weldon hearing. Mary is there at the hearing and she informs us this has been cancelled. We don't know if it's been postponed. We don't know if the nomination is pulled, but Mary is going to come on to the show in half an hour live and tell us as much as she knows of what's going on. So deeply disappointing for all of us. Dr. Dave Weldon, I'm a huge fan of him, so I'm not quite sure what's going on, but Mary will update us. But for now, we want to bring you some very important news, and we're going to bring on Twyla Brace from Citizens Council for Health Freedom to update us on something very important. Twyla, good morning. And good morning, Carolyn and Catherine.
Good morning.
Twyla, do please tell us this because everybody's buzzing right now on, apparently we can't fly on May, is it May the 7th? We will not be able to fly. So could you update us on everything and the importance of what we need to be doing before Saturday?
So I think the important thing to understand is that this thing called Real ID is not just a card, it's not just any old card, and it's also a system. So what we're talking about here is a national identification system that is going to control access. It is being imposed by the federal government. It's against states' rights, it's against individual rights. It's attacking individual sovereignty, state sovereignty. And so this claim that you cannot fly starting on May 7th is not true. I think that's the first thing to know. The first thing is it's a national ID card, and so it's unconstitutional. The second thing to know is that you can fly on May 7th, despite what the media is saying, despite what TSA is saying. What you have to do is look at the little words where it says a Real ID or a Real ID compatible identification card, which means it could be a passport, it could be a passport card, it could be a enhanced driver's license, it could be any of the other 16 identification cards. But the third thing to know is that May 7th is not a real deadline. May 7th is the start of progressive enforcement, 2 years of progressive enforcement and progressive consequences. And we don't even know what those mean or what those are, but the TSA decided that it would be melee at the airport if they suddenly said on May 7th that y'all couldn't fly. But now they're trying to say that, but you have to read the little print. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid that you can't fly, because you can fly. If you have a passport, make sure that you understand that you could use that, but you aren't actually going to need it on May 7th. You're probably going to face more statements at the airport, or they're going to hand you something that says, you got 3 strikes and you're out, or something like that. So what I like to tell people is, get a passport if you're worried, get a passport card. It's nice to get the two of those together, but don't get the Real ID, because the Real ID is a national ID and they're moving towards a national digital ID. And on December of 2023, that is exactly what the organization that is the lead organization of all the DMVs around the country, that's what they testified to Congress. They said they wanted to start by getting at least 2% of the population's cards digital on their phones. But the whole plan is to have everything digital. And I just in a letter that some members of Congress sent to the TSA, I believe, they heard somebody from the TSA, the administrator, I think, of the TSA in 2022 or 2023 at a conference. And he said, eventually, we're going to require everything to be done with biometrics. So you can see where this is going. The net is coming down. We need you to contact Congress now. And, it's May 7th is what? I haven't counted the weeks, but it's probably like 5 or 7 weeks away, 5 to 6 weeks away. And so what you need is to contact Congress to let them know, heighten this issue in their minds. They've told us that they haven't been hearing from anybody, and they need to hear from you. We have a special way for you to contact them. If you just go to refuserealid.org, because that's what we want you to do. refuserealid.org. That will give you the information that you need. It will also have links for you to simply click and send a pre-written message to Congress to make it really easy for you. So I think, to understand that this is a national security issue, this is a freedom issue at the healthcare level. People sometimes ask us, why is the Health Freedom Policy Organization involved in Real ID? And what you need to understand is they're going to use body parts and biometrics in order to control you. That's where this is all headed. That's what the Real ID is. It has a biometric scan of your face. And in addition to that, we believe that when they really want people to submit to this, they will try to use healthcare. They will say that you can't access medical care unless you have a Real ID. And the Secretary of Homeland Security by law is allowed to increase or add new requirements for the Real ID. So we think then the next one would likely be access to medical care, just to force everybody to submit. But again, you never have to submit. You never have to submit. You could have one of the other identification cards, or you can go to the airport and submit to questioning and screening. So just so people know, that there was a court case called Gilmore versus Gonzalez, and this guy didn't want to use his ID in order to get through, and they of course denied him access. But what the court said is he could have submitted to a search. And for any of your listeners and viewers out there who have ever lost their ID at the last minute or lost it while they were traveling, they have experienced what this is like. They go into a little cubicle with a TSA agent who looks up a bunch of information on them and asks questions like, this is what they did to me. What was your first email address? What was the color of your first car? Where did you first live? So this is possible. It is possible to fly without an ID. It takes a lot longer. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that this "you can't fly" push is to try to get everyone to submit. 44% of ID cards today are not compliant, and our organization wants to make that not just 44%, but 46 and 48 and 50 and 52%. We want to turn this around and make sure that people are refusing the Real ID, but they're also going back and getting a standard ID if they have the Real ID. And the Real ID has the star on it. I forgot to mention that. But some people call it the gold star card or the star card. So if you have a star, you've got a Real ID, and only 5 states do not let you have anything but a Real ID. And those states are Texas, Georgia, Wyoming. Oh my goodness. And I forgot 2 other ones. But anyway, there's only 5, Georgia. Oh, I mentioned that one. But anyway, it's on refuserealid.org. You can see the 5 states listed there.
Twyla, what about, so at the moment, we're all refusing to have our face taken, and it says you don't have to do it. Are they going to make us do that? Not that we will. I mean, will we have to do our face in that thing?
So I have looked, nothing online says that they are going to make us do that. But, I had a TSA agent in Miami actually tell me that on May 7th, you cannot opt out of the face scan. And I said, you mean Real ID? And I didn't even go into the fact that that wasn't true either. But he said, no, the face scan. And he told me, he said, they've got all these cameras and they've purchased them all and people are opting out. And then what good are they? And so I don't know that that's true. I looked it all up. I couldn't find it. It could be a last minute imposition. But we just sent letters to members of Congress, in particular, Senator Merkley, who has raged online in Instagram and TikTok about the fact that he's been forced to do this, and he's a Democrat. But there have been letters that have gone into TSA from members of Congress since, I think, 2023 or 2022 about this new facial scan at the airport, opposing it. And so I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but everybody who's listening here should just absolutely refuse. You might even consider going to the airport with a mask for when you get in that line, because Merkley raged about the fact that he refused, and they said, oh, it's okay, we already have it. So he was probably wondering if they had taken it while he was like behind the person who was, first up in line, if they were just scanning and getting photos to try to capture people who are likely to opt out. So I'm not sure, but I did think about that as an idea. As far
I wanted you to know, Twyla, I flew from Amsterdam to the East Coast 2 weeks ago, and I came in and, of course, said I was an opt-out, and it very much upset the TSA guy who insisted on interviewing me and typing all my answers into a computer. So they're clearly trying to collect all the information as why we're not going along with this. I also saw a debate in Congress with Congress talking about the fact that they had not authorized the use of biometrics. So can TSA require them if they haven't been authorized by Congress?
So I think this is very interesting thing. And so they put out in their regulations about the use of biometrics, right? And so this is one thing that Senator Lee is trying to get at with his REINS Act, to require all regulations to be passed by Congress or not actually be imposed upon the American people. These people at TSA and DHS and others have become their own legislators because our members of Congress have given them that power. So it's definitely within the rule that they can use biometrics, and they've chosen and put out in the rule about the face biometric. So for facial recognition scanning, right? That's already in there, but it says that it can be an additional biometrics as, the states could choose, or even as DHS or TSA could choose. Because I know when we fought it in Minnesota, it said that, it was biometrics, not only biometrics, but every year they have to see if TSA or DHS has changed their rules, and then the state has to change their rules along with whatever the federal agencies say. So, they could simply, say that you need your DNA, you need a sample of your DNA in there, or your DNA code, on a barcode,
Right.
or whatever. They could do that. And all of this is unconstitutional, but it's also all coming out of the agencies. And it
Right.
always
Are-
perturbs
okay.
me.
Well, are you thinking of filing suit, or has anybody filed suit on this issue?
Well, we do not have an attorney, but I have often thought about the idea of trying to get an attorney to file suit against the Real ID. I will say, in another move, we have encouraged state legislators to pull out from and extract
Right.
themselves from the Real ID law and rules. And now we have in Maine Laurel Libby, who is building a coalition of state legislators across the country, trying to have as many bills out against Real ID and repealing the state's conformity with the federal law.
So I
So
just want to
that is
jump.
building.
I just want to jump in and make sure everybody listening understands that for a central control grid to snap into place, the next most important piece you need is a digital ID. So we're talking here about financial freedom. In other words, this is how they control your money. This is how they control your bank account. This is the linchpin of control for control across all your expenditures, whether they're money, health, you name it. We're talking about the basis of absolute complete control. And we can't stop absolute complete control if a national ID system, particularly one that's interoperable with global systems, which I believe the Real ID will be, then we're talking about complete global control.
Well, and it's just financial. I mean, they could require
Absolutely.
kind of ID for voting. They could require it to get on a bus.
Right. This is what we need to implement a social credit system. You cannot have a social credit system without exceptionally high quality Real ID data. That's what you need. And so when Twyla says this is important, there's nothing more important to freedom than stopping this. And that's why, again, Twyla, give the website where they can. I've sent 2 in already.
Wonderful.
So go ahead, give the website where we can access your app to send in letters.
Yes, they can go to refuserealid.org, refuserealid.org. And I'll just add here that we are in the process of developing a billboard because we'd like to put billboards up in different states, and we'd like to find people who would like to host and post those billboards. So if any of your listeners are interested, they should contact us because we've almost got the design ready, and I do believe this is going to be a longer term battle. It would be lovely to have it like in the continuing resolution or the budget, to have a delay. But no matter what, if they put a delay in, they're still planning to get you all in. And we have to raise the public awareness because I give presentations and I say, open up your billfold, open up your purse. What do you have? Do you have a star on your card? If you have a star on your card, you've got the real ID. You're part of the net that is closing around you, and you've got to get yourself out of it. So people don't know. They just think it's an ID card with a star on. They have no idea.
So the states, you have a lot of people in the states who, if they understood this, would be willing to pass a bill. And we are just about to do a briefing tonight with a wonderful person in South Dakota who got a bill passed on cash. In South Dakota, we just saw Wyoming and Utah pass new bills on precious metals. The states are moving and acting. So I love the strategy of getting your state to pull out of the real ID system. I think.
And also understand the federal government has control over flying and anything having to do with interstate commerce. But the attorneys general are at the state level, and if they are riled up, they can get together and file suit on behalf of, all of us. And so if the states know that this is a huge issue, it may be that their attorneys general will be active in this fight.
Yes,
Right.
and I think raising public awareness is key here because this is one of those things that is just happening underneath the surface. Well, it's not really happening underneath the surface. It's just that the end game is unknown. People don't understand there's an end game here. They can't see the end game. They haven't been told about the end game. They just think they're getting a different license with a star on. And so we have to have them see that the end game is social control, federal control, transportation control, transaction control, everything that you might need an ID for, they could control. And of course, if they make it digital, and as this group told Congress, they want remote access to it. That means real-time remote access. That means they can shut off your ID anytime they want, anywhere you are. They could trap you, somewhere where you couldn't essentially get out because you can't move because you need an ID to move. You need an ID to rent. You need an ID to rent a car. You need an ID to buy gas. Whatever they would decide that you would need the real ID for, suddenly you couldn't do it. And that's what's at stake here.
Now,
Right.
they don't have the biometric data yet on the real ID, right? But
they've got the face. They've got the face. The face.
You're saying that the facial scan at the airport is what would be entered into
the picture on the driver's ID.
That's right.
Right, they have the pictures on the driver's ID. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the first biometric that they mandated. And then the rule says, and others, they could, opt for others. They could opt for a palm scan or an eye scan or whatever it is. And if you look at this company called IDEMIA, we have done the only report on IDEMIA. Go to our website, cchfreedom.org, and look at it. But more than that, at the airport, look around. Look at all of the equipment encasing the TSA security agent. It says IDEMIA. If you look at TSA PreCheck, it says IDEMIA. IDEMIA has the cameras at the ports. IDEMIA has the cameras in the airports. IDEMIA is doing TSA PreCheck, and it's doing security, and it is moving toward what they call augmented authentication. And in a video that IDEMIA showed, you would walk into the airport and you would never show a piece of paper. You'd look up at a camera, you'd wave a palm, you'd use a fingerprint. There would be no papers. That was a video on their website previously. I don't know if it's still there, but yes, look for that word and that symbol. That's exactly it. And so we have done the report on this. You can find it in our publications on our website. Nobody else has done a report on this organization, but they're also doing all of the IDs, not all, sorry, more than 40 IDs for the states. They're doing them, the driver's license and the IDs. And they also did all of the national IDs for the state of India. So you can see that this organization is working in collaboration with our government to build the net, to build the system. And I believe it's a global one as well. I believe nothing says right now that it's going to connect globally, but I believe it will be made to connect globally.
Twyla, how are the other sides selling this? Because I was speaking to a young lady recently who said, I think it's a great idea. It's going to stop sex trafficking. It's going to stop terrorists coming in, all kinds of. How are they selling it? So what are we up against when we're having this conversation with people?
Mostly there's two things. I've never heard the sex trafficking before, but mostly it is that it will stop illegals. And then the other thing is that it's good for voting, right? But none of this is true, because states are responsible for this. States are responsible for what happens in their state. States are responsible for voting. States are responsible for determining who gets a driver's license and an ID in their state and making sure that it's not illegals. But lots of them have given enough on that because, they've been part of the Biden administration and they've liked, the influx of illegals or whatever, right? But this is a state responsibility. And so for your viewers here to know this, that when this happened in 2005, Lamar Alexander on the floor of the US Senate, he said, this is a national identification card. We've never done this in America, and we've never had a discussion. And maybe we should have a public debate about this. But of course they didn't, and they just passed it. And the states didn't know what was happening, but 3 years later, the states knew what was happening because suddenly out came a rule from DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, saying, states, you must comply. And 37 states said, no way. They wrote laws against it. They wrote resolutions against it. They didn't move forward. And so they knew that it was a usurpation of states' rights, and it still is. So all of those kind of things, like it'll help this or it'll help that, or it's convenient, but we're really making a choice about convenience versus control, and you have to see the control, and you have to just ignore any claims of convenience, or claims of this is going to help X, Y, or Z. It's all unconstitutional, and the states can do it.
So Lou, I don't know if you can access quickly those two PowerPoints that we did for the show on the QR code. But we might show the convenience argument pretty quickly if you can pull them up. We'll give him a second if he could do it. So Twyla, Polly wanted me to make the case on why QR codes were not convenient. So we put together, and I don't remember if we showed it to you, a little circle with all the different conveniences, from QR codes to an all digital monetary system to a digital ID. We had sort of 12 different pieces around it. And then, we talk about, well, I can deal with this one and I can deal with this one, and this one makes it more convenient. But when they fuse into a whole system and snap into the digital concentration camp, that's when you realize, oh, complete control is not convenient.
No, and actually, people should stop using credit cards.
Right.
I mean, that's a convenience. It's a convenience even for me, but I'm like, more and more I'm moving toward cash. It's not traceable. And of course, as you know, the WEF is like, we've got to have all the money traceable, right? We've got to know why they're using their $100 and what they're buying. So
Lou, I'm going to pick on you. Can you go to FT2, our financial transaction website at Solari? I'll just show you.
Yeah, I have long with Twyla, remember, because she has to go.
I know. I'm just going to take 2 minutes.
Oh, well, while he's finding that, I just want to say we're so grateful for the work you're doing.
Yes.
No one else is doing this, and you're educating us. A lot of people just don't know about this. So thank you for all of your work that you do.
Well, I had a reporter from Newsmax. I was giving a presentation, and he handed me his card, and he said, so it's not a done deal? I'm like, oh, no. No, and nothing is a done deal. Even if it were sort of a done deal, it's still not a done deal. But it's really hard. The further you get into it, it's really hard to turn it back. So it's really up to the American public right now to turn it back. Turn in your real ID cards and get a standard driver's license. You must do it. We must make these numbers go backwards. We just must increase the non-compliance numbers for the cards. All the states have complied with their rules and regulations. Doesn't matter. You must not comply and you must uncomply. So if you have complied, unwittingly uncomply, and then tell members of Congress and tell your state legislators, stop this. I understand where this is going. I don't want a social credit system in America, and I don't want any part of this. So take us out of this system and shut it down. And you should also contact Rand Paul, who had a repeal Real ID bill, and let him know, bring that back. Get a hearing on Real ID. He can do it. He is head of the Homeland Security. And Mike Lee, tell him.
So is it, I was on the Twyla, I was on the website for ID Me, and it looks to me like it's a French company. Is that the case?
Yes.
I thought me different.
Yeah, it was Morpho Trust. And then it just as we were putting in our report, they changed their name to IDEMIA, but yep, French. That's as I recall. I haven't looked at it for a while, but I believe.
Okay, well, I'll show the Financial Transaction Freedom website after we talk with Mary, but I do want to say anybody who's got one of my favorite lines from Patton was speed costs, or no, from the race car guys, speed costs money, how fast do you want to go? And for anybody who's got the capacity, putting some money into Twyla's organization, give your website again, because I think funding you is one of the greatest gifts we can give to freedom.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, it is cchfreedom.org. cchfreedom.org.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So send something to Congress using Twyla's app at refuserealid.org. Go give money if you can. Put her in your prayers and spread the word. Let everybody you know how important this is. Spread the word. Help them get the star off of their driver's license if they have them. And just let's get everybody moving on this. I've seen so many great things accomplished over the last 5 years, and every one of them started with, it's too late, it can't be done. And guess what? It could be done, and we can do this. We can do this. Sorry, Carolyn, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to make a couple of points. Number one, if you're in a state that doesn't let you get the regular ID, contact your state legislators and make a big deal.
Yeah,
tell them you don't like
Absolutely.
that. Second of all, calling your congressman or your senator is more impactful. I'm not against doing joining the mass effort, but if you call them, call Washington or call your local office and talk to them. That is the most impactful way that you can have an effect on what they do. And I wanted to ask Twyla, did you say ID.me turned into IDEMIA?
No, Morpho Trust.
Oh, okay. So there's also ID.me, which is what they use for the Social Security Administration. So if you get Medicare and Medicaid or benefits, they're using ID.me, and I can only imagine that gets hooked into this at some point.
And thank you, Carolyn, for saying the phone calls, because the phone calls are really important. I have sat in those offices of members of Congress, and I have heard the calls, and I've heard the calls when they're coming in hot and heavy, and I've heard the calls when they're sporadic. And I'm here to tell you, I've heard those staffers sit there and take those calls, write down notes. That is the most important. So everybody should make a call.
Twyla, thank you so much. We know that you've got to go, so we're going to let you go, but we can't wait for you to come back on and continue this conversation. And we will be following everything you're doing. So thank you so much to Twyla.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Okay, well, look, everybody, Mary is just tuning in now. She's just managed to get a place where she can update us on what's going on. But while we're waiting for Mary, Catherine, did you want to talk about something else?
Yes, so I wanted to show you a section on our Financial Transaction Freedom website. So we have a website just dedicated to our efforts for financial freedom. And if you go to the navigation bar, there's a section called Team Cash. And this is we're doing a briefing for legislators tonight on precious metals legislation, and we're going to do a piece on cash. Susan Lucius is a wonderful electrical engineer, originally from Silicon Valley. And during the pandemic, she said, "Oh no, I'm not sending my kids to school with masks on." So she moved her family to South Dakota, and she just tried to get two cash bills passed. She got one passed. And there's lots of information on the website about that. And then there's a copy of the bill from Tennessee we're trying to get passed. But I wanted you to go all the way down to the bottom of the page, Lou. There's a wonderful bio and description of Susan, but I wanted you to see her pickup truck, Polly.
Yeah, I love it.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So Susan's got a whole group. So she just got a bill passed that said school activities had to take cash. You can't go to the school football game and they require a credit card or a digital ID. And we put up all the material she used to get it passed. It's quite impressive. But I thought the billboard on the pickup truck was about the most effective I've seen so far. So I wanted Polly to see it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, we're still waiting for Mary. She's just texted me saying she's just trying to get on.
So let's put up the chart and let's go over. So every quarter at Solari, we do a wrap up where we wrap up the news, and we're spending a huge amount of time on this one talking about the issues that are causing the current executive branch, the U.S., the Trump administration, to try and cut current expenses. So I wanted to show this chart of the 2025 budget because I'm not sure everybody realizes, and I want to just focus on the top sort of 8 items, if you will. So everybody knows that the U.S. government has been running a military central banking model with military spread all over the world. The Department of Defense at $872 billion, that doesn't include the intelligence agencies and what I call the black budget, which makes it much bigger, is now less than half. Look at this, less than half of the Department of Health and Human Services, which includes the expenditures for Medicare and Medicaid. And what this chart says to me, Polly, is that the great poisoning is bankrupting America. And we've seen this. If you look at the extraordinary confirmation hearings we saw for Kennedy's Secretary of HHS and the sort of other debates around that issue, you have very courageous people like Toby Rogers saying, look, if we poison America, particularly with vaccines, we're going to bankrupt America. And integrating, Toby does a great job in his writings of integrating the sort of what's happening financially in the country and what's happening financially in our personal finances, because this is bankrupting. Poisoning America is bankrupting the country and families, both. So if you break those 2025 budget figures down to a per capita basis, we have almost double the per capita expenses of any country in the world, and we get much worse outcomes. So it's simple at the root of it. And if you listen to Kennedy during the confirmation hearings talking about we have a chronic epidemic of illness among children, if we don't turn around, we're wiped as a society. So as an investment banker, what I will tell you is if you look at these numbers, what you realize is a financial matter, we either radically depopulate or we end the great poisoning, which is why the debate of what's happening and what's happening with Weldon is so very, very important.
Yes, thank you, Catherine, for that. Let's bring Mary Holland in. Mary, please update us on what's happening. I know she's there. I can see her.
I can see her. Can we hear her yet?
She might have frozen.
Well, I'm here back at the hotel. I'm with our hearing this morning, and just on our phones that the Weldon nomination had been withdrawn, and we were shocked and thought it was fake news, possibly. And then we went into the hearing room and we did watch the votes for Bhattacharya and Makari, and a little bit of conversation that was quite interesting. No real explanation at all why the Weldon nomination was pulled, but Senator Cassidy at the very beginning sort of talked about distrust in health agencies and the context of measles, which would seem to be a lot of what was going on. It was pretty clear that they didn't have the votes for Weldon on the Health Committee. And I can tell you that I and many people who were there and on text threads that were on are just tremendously disappointed. Weldon was perfectly credentialed, having been a member of Congress and a physician and a Republican, to take that job. And he was outspoken about vaccines. He understands vaccines candidly better than any of the other key appointments that Bobby was proposing. He's been at this a long time. I heard him speak probably 15 years ago at a National Vaccine Information Center conference. So he was too outspoken on vaccines, is what it really looks like to me, which is, vaccines are the magic sauce that keeps the chronic disease epidemic going. And I think Dave Weldon understood that perfectly. And my guess is there was some kind of an alliance between pharma and Senator Cassidy and some of his compatriots in the Senate to kill the nomination. So anyway, I'd be happy to have my colleague John come and speak as well. John, do you want to?
Oh, good morning. This is John Gilmore. Carolyn and Catherine, I don't know if you know him. He's been fighting for us for a long time. Good morning.
Hey, Polly. Yeah, this is very bad news. Very disturbing news. We don't have real hard information. We've got some sort of rumors that we're hearing and so on. It does seem pretty clear, though, based on the comments that Chairman Cassidy made this morning, in combination with some of the things we're hearing, is that I would say he clearly did not support the Weldon nomination, and it only takes one. There's 13 to Republicans, 12 Democrats. If a single Republican isn't on board with the nominee, then that person does not go forward. So that sort of seems what happens. It's just very disturbing that Dave Weldon was the one who did not go forward. Again, just like Mary said, I sort of assumed that he would have a relatively easy time getting the nomination, given that he'd been in the House for, I think, at least 10 years. And, is still a practicing doctor. He seemed like that's exactly who you'd want. But apparently he's not. And the only thing we can think of that makes any sense is the objection to his willingness to consider safety issues with vaccines and possible connection to autism. So
do we know, I know this is a difficult question. Was Cassidy absolutely dug in, or was the White House just not willing to fight for it?
Catherine, I don't think we know. I think the atmospherics in the room were very clear that Cassidy was opposed. What people were telling us was that Murkowski and Collins were also not comfortable with Dr. Weldon. And it's just very disappointing. I don't think we know what the White House view is right now. I don't think we really know what Bobby's view is. We're being told basically inside information that a decision was reached early this morning. There had been late night negotiations with some of the key senators here. We'd already seen Senator Cassidy's reservations on display about anything that touched on vaccines. I note that on March 7, there was a story in the New York Times about an alleged CDC study about vaccines and autism. And we know that Cassidy has spoken very adamantly to oppose that. So we don't know whether that was sort of a setup to sort of, basically give fuel to go after Weldon, that he's going after research that's already been done, it's been debunked, et cetera. We don't really know, but it's pretty crushing. And, Cassidy at the beginning of his remarks in the hearing talked about distrust in the public health agencies. It doesn't do a lot to encourage trust when at the last minute, in a very humiliating way, I would think, you drop a candidate that's been announced for a couple months to be the head of CDC. So we're still kind of crushed, to be honest with you.
Right. Right.
And I think what this indicates is that we're gonna have to spend a lot more time than I think a lot of people anticipated pushing the White House and Congress to do the type of things, the type of studies, kind of policies that we've been fighting for so long. It's going to take a lot of effort on our part to move that forward, and which I kind of always expected, but clearly, I think it's going to take a lot more than some of us may have thought. So, beware, folks.
Is that definitely it for Weldon? Is there any coming back for him, or is he just out?
Polly, I think it's a great question. Having sat in on the hearing, I think he's out. I don't think they don't have the stomach for it. And I do think the backdrop of the measles outbreak was critical here. Polly, I know we're really doing a deeper dive on that, but that backdrop of, infectious disease was very much, a good prop for what's going on.
It's terribly sad. I was so excited for Dr. Dave
So,
Weldon.
Sure.
So obviously, we're hoping that transparency around the data of what the real impact of vaccines is, so comparisons of non-vaccinated children with vaccinated, et cetera. So we think transparency can make a difference. And my only reservation is if you look at the extraordinary extent to which ill health is bankrupting America, we're just looking at the charts of the costs of, the poisoning of America. We are facing an industry that's making extraordinary amounts of money from poisoning America. And it's not only industry. We have millions of people who have jobs taking care of disabled people. We're just publishing on this Lear report, Dr. Skidmore's study, or an interview about Dr. Skidmore's study, where he calculated that if we could return to 2010 levels of disability, we would save $500 billion on the federal budget. Now, that's an extraordinary calculation. And if you look at the effort the administration is trying to make to bring down current expenditures, I don't see how you can get current expenditures down $2 trillion unless you get that kind of savings on the Health and Human Services budget. So it's interesting because this denial of facing facts on what's causing disease is running like it's like a big game of Texas chicken that's running straight into the incredible need to balance the federal budget. And the health of the two are intimately tied up, in reality, but not in people's consciousness.
Not right, and not in the propaganda. I mean, the good news to me, Catherine, is that, Secretary of HHS, Bobby Kennedy really does understand this. He really understands that it's vaccines that are causing the chronic health epidemics and that are bankrupting the country. So I don't think that he's confused about that at all. And I think he saw in Dave Weldon correctly a fantastic ally. And in my view, they have just, they've just killed.
So here's the question before us. How, we know what Bobby at HHS can do to.
And I do think there could be some really good. Yeah, I think that I think they're going to come up with somebody else, probably somebody who's less outspoken than Dave Weldon was. Dave Weldon is on the record for 15 years talking about the real harms from vaccines. I think pharma just said, bridge too far, we're not going to do it. And they found senators to back them up on that. I think they're going to have to, frankly, probably find somebody who's been less outspoken.
Mary, who put pharma in charge, and are they giving back pay to these people, senators? I mean, what is happening here? What is really going on behind the scenes?
Probably, I don't know. I mean, certainly campaign contributions happen. And, for instance, money changes hands. I don't think we're going to know exactly how that happened anytime soon, but I don't know if this is a money changing thing.
I will just tell you my prejudice. I don't know this specific situation, but in general, what I will tell you is our greatest foe is not pharma. Our greatest foe is millions and millions of wonderful doctors and people who do not want to face the fact that they have participated in poisoning their own families and children and selves
Yeah.
They do not want to face this because it's so
Right.
horrible. It's such
What is it, Catherine, you call it pushing the red button, right? I mean, people
Right.
don't want to do that, right? You're right. It takes courage to do that, to say, yes, we participated in killing ourselves and our loved ones.
right.
Mary,
And so we literally need to understand. I mean, if there's anything I'm not qualified in, it's therapy. But if there's anything we need a,
Yeah.
somebody who knows how you help hundreds of millions of people look in the mirror and say, you know something, I'm the patsy and
Yeah.
I did wrong
right.
and I forgive myself and I
Yeah.
can go forward. That's what we
Yeah.
need.
I think you're right, Catherine. I think that is a huge piece of it. I think, pharma and the people making money from it, I bet that. But I think you're right that there's a tremendous level of denial that keeps people sick, but it also keeps them from dealing with the moral anguish that I participated.
Right.
Can I just say that I want to point out that if Trump got up and gave the statistics from the Vax Unvax book, which is peer-reviewed studies, I can't imagine that wouldn't wake up a huge number of people and make Cassidy look pretty bad.
Yeah.
And Trump is not doing that. All you people who think, I'm sorry to use the term you people, but all of the support he does no wrong. He could turn this around with one Twitter post.
Carolyn, yeah, I think you're right, Carolyn. I think Trump has a lot of power. I do think, Catherine probably knows better than any of us, it's a dirty game, right? I mean, politics is dirty. There's a lot of horse trading. Trump has a lot of different constituencies he has to kind of rein in. He has a lot of goals. I think he has to weigh, when can I use this political capital? When do I have to hold back and let things go? I don't know that he's that. I don't know how strategic he really is, but you're right. He could absolutely take a stronger stance than he has. Presumably,
Right, but
he might even have been able to stop this.
So whatever happened with Cassidy going along with the secretary's confirmation, it looked to me like Trump pulled hard for that one. So he delivered. So we know he
Right.
knows, he's done it and he's done it on this issue. But at the same
Yeah.
time, Kennedy was very, he did a lot of verbal backpedals to make that possible. So
Yep.
Can
Yeah.
I just say, 'cause we're running out of
Yeah,
time.
I think.
I just want to say we need to hold the press accountable for a lot of this, especially with
Right.
what's going on with the measles at the moment. A lot of this nonsense and fear mongering that's going on is coming directly from the press. And so they have a lot to be helpful. Mary and John, I want to thank you both for coming on the show
Yes.
this morning. There's going to be a defender. Everyone keep your eyes peeled for the defender because they will have more on this coming out later. And,
Right, but I also want to say this is a long-term push. It's a long-term push we're going to win because reality matters. And there's nothing more important than having people like John and Mary get in there and keep turtling. It's going to work. It's what you said, John. It's going to take a long time, but we're ready. Let's go.
yeah,
Yeah. You're right.
thank you both so much.
Onward.
Onwards. we go.
Upward.
Well,
Thanks, Polly. Thanks, Catherine. Carolyn, great to see you.
Take care.
To our viewers, sorry about the slight technical things. What happens when you're live? Things like that happen. We're going to run an MMR story at Catherine and Karen, and we've been running one every single day, and we will continue to run MMR stories, the injuries coming from the MMR, until people understand what this vaccine can actually do that can kill your child. Because the other press, the mainstream press, are running about how safe and effective the MMR is. So every single day we run a story. So we're going to be running that in a minute. But Catherine and Karen, any last words on everything that we've been talking about today? Because that was quite some show, really.
Right. So there's no way that this could be happening unless this is what the central bankers want. Okay? That's what you have to understand. The US government runs on a deficit, and every day and every week, the New York Fed helps raise money in the bond market and puts that money in the Treasury's bank account that keeps the government going. They have complete control. Okay? So this could not be happening unless this is what the bankers want. That's what you have to understand. And so that's the game we're playing in. And that's why broad popular opinion pushing hard is so very important. And if you look at where they're pushing, whether on the Real ID or vaccines, they're pushing into a place that we're not going to go. So we have to push back. And if there's one message I want to send to everybody, you cannot imagine how amazing things could change if we all got off the couch. So, my message to you is there ain't no but choice but get off the couch. And if we get off the couch, we can win. So get off the couch.
That's right. And be brave as well. Go out. Stop being afraid of speaking the truth, being afraid of what your neighbor or your mother or your friend thinks of you. Who cares? We've got to fight for the future. So get out there and speak truth. And that is what I'm so proud of, all those parents that come out and tell their stories. And the doctors that come out that have been brave enough to do that. And yes, some of them have had their licenses taken away, but they've gone on to write books, or in Andy Wakefield's, he's become a film director. There are other things you can do in life than poison people.
Right.
Anything else from Carolyn or Catherine?
That's it. Have a wonderful week, and do not lose your state of amusement. And of course, there's one other thing we have to remind people, Polly. What is it?
Pray big, stand firm, and never settle. Yeah, praying is everything, people. Pray big, be careful with your as well. All right. On that note, we will go to our MMR story of the day. And thank you, Carolyn and Catherine. We'll see you next week. Financial Rebellion.
Have a great day. Bye.
My name is Kim Gordon.
And what's your name?
Ian.
How old are you, Ian?
24.
24. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what's your name?
Glenn Gordon.
Glenn Gordon. And what's your name?
Scott Gordon. I'm 26 years old.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so who's going to tell this story? I've got a feeling it's you.
Yes. I can tell you that both of the boys were born healthy, and then they got their MMR shots at 15 months.
Did they have anything before that?
Yeah, they had a few shots before that. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember exactly. But
they seemed okay before.
Yeah, they seemed okay before. And then they had the MMR shots at 15 months. And within days, both of them descended into autism. Scott ran around banging his head and screaming like he was in pain. He might have had a migraine and couldn't tell us. And Ian was doing a lot of this,
A lot of hand
and and hand flapping, and both of the boys were speech delayed. And when it happened with Scott, I called our pediatrician to report the changes in his behavior, because up until then he had been a happy, healthy baby. And I was told, oh, it's early onset of the terrible twos. No, it wasn't. It was the onset of autism, only the doctor didn't recognize it at the time, because at that time they weren't looking for it. This was back in 1998, just at the beginning of the pandemic. And when it was time for him to get his MMR shots at 15 months, just information had just started to come out about a possible connection between the MMR and autism. And at that time, I couldn't research it myself because we didn't have a computer in the house. And who's going to go sit in the library and do research all day when you have two babies at home? And half the information that's out there now wasn't out there then. So I thought, okay, I'll bring this up when we go to the pediatrician's office. They should be up on these things. So I did, and I was told that there was no scientific connection between the MMR vaccine and autism, and that I really should vaccinate because the complications of measles can be very serious. So I gave consent for him to be vaccinated, and within days he descended into autism. And it's been an uphill battle ever since. It was very difficult to even get an accurate diagnosis. Scott was misdiagnosed with ADHD. We had to take him to another doctor who was finally able to diagnose both of the boys with autism at the same time. He was diagnosed at age 5 and he was diagnosed at age 3. They were both diagnosed at the same visit. And we were able to get early interventions because even before they had their diagnosis, they were classified as preschoolers with disabilities. That was the classification that the school districts could give so that we could start to get early interventions. But then once they got an official diagnosis, it made it easier to fine-tune those services. But you have to fight for the services. I feel like sometimes like I need a football helmet and a sword and shield to get through all the people that I need to get through to get these two services. And we are still struggling to get services. Ian should have a day program, and he should have community HAB services in the home and respite services. He should be in an adult level group home. But right now, we keep getting told that there are no openings anywhere, and so we have been doing the very best we can to provide a structured routine at home. He's in the Spellers program, and he's doing very well in
Nice.
that.
Good.
And he's also been to various programs like Fantastic Friends, and he's done well in those art classes there. And Scott is now working full-time.
Where do you work, Scott?
I work at a Wester, that's the name of the dealership. The store that I'm at is Wester Nissan Infinity. Last month I just celebrated my 8th anniversary with the company recently. I am currently working on getting my GED diploma, and then after that we'll be going to ECC for automotive mechanics.
Community college for auto tech.
Yeah.
Right. Now, what do you do at the lot?
I am in charge of running the entire car lot at Wester, responsible for all vehicles used, certified, pre-owned, and brand new.
That's amazing.
Oh,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
I
Good for you.
I do want to also mention, because I had suspected, because I've been trying to figure out how this happened here. I had suspected, and that's when I read one of the books from Children's Health Defense, the DTaP vaccine has mercury in it. So it was in 2008 I got it, and then I think 2009 this happened.
What happened?
Takes us out.
Your
This
eye turned in.
eye turned in.
Yeah.
So you think that was from DTaP?
I suspected.
And you read Children's Health Defense, do you? Our emails? Or
yeah,
the
and
books?
as well as the books.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
good.
suspected it, and then I had started hearing information from other sites in the Vaccine Information Center about a little girl, I think, who got that one or another one, and the same thing happened.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Oh, I could talk to you for ages.
yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So, what is a day-to-day like now? We know what your day's like. What's his day like?
Well, Ian, we get up in the morning and I'll make breakfast for him. He likes his oatmeal with blueberries, maple syrup, and maybe have some sausage or something with it. And then of course Kim, she handles she gives him a lot of supplements which are helping to improve his gut function and his the whole gut brain connection. So there's supplements to help him recover. He has recovered quite a bit, and then of course I'll help him get showered and get dressed and that, and then he's very helpful around the house, and he'll do laundry, take it down, put it in the machine, and he'll help vacuum and clean the house. He likes to cook. Like if one of us is making dinner, say, well, Ian, you need you to peel carrots or potatoes, right, guy? Yeah.
That's
He
very
does a good
helpful.
job. And he likes to help cook, so maybe someday he'll be in some kind of situation where he's helping out with assisting the chef or something like that. So we like to get him into a vocational program where he can do all these things. He loves to do artwork. Unfortunately, well, he likes to do it on the walls too, but mostly it's confined to his room. And in the basement, we have some interesting artwork on the floor and on on the walls, which were just recently painted. But, and I said if he could reach the ceiling, he might be like Michelangelo. But he's doing well, though, right, Ian?
Yeah,
You think your brain is waking up?
Yeah, my brain is waking up.
What do you like to do? What's your favourite thing to do?
Yeah, what's my favorite thing to do? I know. My favorite thing to do is cook hot dogs.
You like hot dog? You like doing pasta too? don't you?
Pasta, yeah.
Like noodles.
Noodles, yeah.
Noodles with kraut.
Noodles and kraut. and stuff.
Sausage. Yeah.
Sausage, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a joy to have in the kitchen. It cuts my workload in half because he can pick up that frying pan if something needs to be poured out of the frying pan and into a casserole dish. He can pick that up with one hand and it's not a problem. If I did it, I would stand there and spoon it out a little bit at a time because, you know, it's good to have some muscle in the kitchen. And then also draining soup or anything out of the crock pot, he can pick up that great big pot full of soup and dump it into the colander, and it's very easy for him. It's not a problem. So yeah, Ian has been doing quite well. We recently switched, we adjusted some of his medications, and so he's very calm.
Yeah.
Ian has had a history of violent and destructive behaviors, you know, and then after it's all over, he gets upset.
Right.
And I can't imagine how he must feel during some of those things, you know, and
it's situations where the police have to be called.
Yeah, it's been very difficult and dangerous.
But you've been
for
doing
us.
great lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very good. You're a wonderful family.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you really are. You really are. What advice do you give to the young who are starting out having children? What would you say to them?
I would say that if I had a chance to turn back the clock, I would have canceled their 15-month MMR appointments and never even given it another thought. And I would love to do that just to see how things would have turned out. I often think about that because had I not taken them to those appointments, they could have continued to be healthy, and they could have had normal lives, and so could we. You know, our story would be very different had I canceled those appointments.
Well, I think your son's also right here when he's done the research at Children's Health Defence, and it's not just the MMR, is it?
Not just MMR, they mean that DTaP was responsible for damaging this eye. This other one's good, but this one is damaged, so I see double a little bit.
I'm sorry about that.
It doesn't stop me from doing my job or from driving, which it's a blessing because it could have been worse.
That's correct.
But all I have to say is, apparently I've completely and permanently lost confidence and trust in the vaccine and flu shot industry and our regulatory health agencies and the entire pharmaceutical industry. The vaccines and flu shots are not as safe and effective as we all thought they would be.
Amen to that.
So,
Oh yes.
yep.
Oh, I could sit here and talk to you all for absolutely ever. You really are a wonderful family.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, truly. Okay, well, thank you for all telling your story. We're really proud of you boys, doing super well.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be back soon.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.